Welcome to the 10th edition of the Film Bazaar. Right now with me is the eminent film critic and journalist Rajiv Masand. Sir, my first question is why do we always see you at the Film Bazaar only, not at IFFI? Why?
It's a very good question. I really do think that I'll explain to you why you see me at the Film Bazaar. I think that the Film Bazaar is an incredible initiative. I think that the Film Bazaar knows how to market itself. I think that they make sure that we're there. They make sure that they have these engaging sessions, whether it's a knowledge series, which I'm personally invested in because every year I try to conduct at least one of those sessions, whether it's the co-production markets, whether it's the viewing room. I really think that the Film Bazaar has learned in all these years how to market itself, how to package itself. So I think it's a little unfair perhaps you were not, I do think that it's an incredible opportunity. Why not at IFFI? I do try to go to IFFI. This year, I'm only here for a year, but this year I particularly feel like IFFI has been really thanda. I haven't heard of a lot of buzz of who are the filmmakers visiting a lot of the major titles. I do feel like a few years ago, you still heard about, really coveted titles at IFFI. There were films that you knew you wanted to watch. I remember watching the Pakistani film, and now I forget the name. I remember watching one of the interesting Pakistani films here a few years ago. I remember watching the Hungarian film a few years ago by Mungyu. I don't find that there are as many exciting titles, or certainly that's not being communicated. I find that Film Bazaar is able to do a much better job of communicating what they're doing than IFFI does.
Adding to that point, I would like to ask you that this year IFFI has reduced the number of countries. This year it's 88 countries. Do you think it's little unfair to the one country?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to comment on something that I'm not aware of. I just think that the selection needs to be a really strong selection. I think that festivals like Kerala, I think that the Mami Film Festival do that. Their selection is really very strong. IFFI used to have a very strong selection. I think what IFFI is not doing is they're not marketing themselves. They're not communicating their selections. They're not communicating their highlights well enough. This year there's been literally zero buzz around IFFI, which is a shame because it is the national festival. It is the National Film Festival. It is the festival that delegates from all over the world come and attend. Why don't I know of the hot titles? Why don't I know of the important guests? I literally don't even know who's on the jury this year, and I'm actively reporting on film. These are things that they should be making a noise about. Unfortunately, I don't think they've done that very well this year, certainly, and not in the last few years actually.
Okay, sir. This year the Film Bazaar is completing 10 years. So far, what changes you have seen in the Film Bazaar?
I think that their level of engagement has increased considerably. I think their co-production markets, their viewing room is terrific. They add titles every year. So even if you miss screenings, if you're actually unable to attend Film Bazaar screenings, you can catch those films in the viewing room. Also, they bring a lot of the filmmakers previously whose films were discovered or created or really had their genesis in the Film Bazaar. So you actually see the very people whose projects materialized from Film Bazaar. Whether it's Kanu Bell, who is here with Titri, whether it's Avinash Arun, whose Killa had some roots in Film Bazaar. I think that you see that the growth is very palpable. You can see it, and they're really the truth really is everyone's doing a lot of good work. It's about how well you can sell yourself. I think Film Bazaar has learned that. They know how to make a noise, and that needs to be done. We can condemn it all we like, but the truth is, if you're not making a noise and if you're not communicating what you're doing, then unfortunately it's going unnoticed.
This year, the Film Bazaar is hold a conversation session which called the knowledge session. Have you seen any knowledge session?
I attended, it's called the Knowledge Series, and it's not just this year. They've been doing it for many years actually, and every year I moderate at least one or two sessions. In the past, I've moderated sessions with filmmakers like Farah Khan, Karan Johar, Sujoy Ghosh, Anurag. This year, I moderated a session with Anand L. Rai, the director of the Tanued's Manu films, and I enjoyed that. But a session I attended before that was a session on virtual reality, which I thought was very, very interesting. Also because I think that virtual reality is something that's going to change the landscape of storytelling, of narrative storytelling in the future. year, and they got someone to conduct this session who not only is hands-on in VR, but who didn't take for granted that the audience knew what virtual reality was. So it really was a very accessible conversation. Even if you didn't know a lot about virtual reality, you could understand it, and I thought that was really good. So I'm only here for one day today, this year at Film Bazaar. Only one day. I conducted one session and I attended a session which I really I feel I'm richer by having attended that session. So I'm actually quite glad that I picked the right one.
The IFFI this year screening around 194 films. Which films do you suggest for the delegates? Must watch.
Well, now that's the problem. The problem is I don't know of a lot of films. I mean, I know that you get
You know about the Cannes selection.
Yes, I do know about the Cannes selections. I do know about the gala selections. I know that they're screening, but that's my problem. My problem is that we only know about Sultan being screened here. I mean, that's not what we should know. We should know about what are the gems that are being that you can discover here. I don't think that's happened. I don't think that they've been able to communicate that effectively. I just don't know that, and I feel that is a shame, because you want any film festival, the joy of discovery is the greatest thing you can take away when you discover a rare gem. I also, the truth is I'm not attending IFFI this year. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to attend the festival, so I haven't sought out films that I should watch. But I'm hoping it is an exciting selection. I have a whole bunch of friends, and as happens every year, after the festival's over, a bunch of cinephiles sit together and discuss what they watched. So hopefully, they'll tell me what are the titles that they watched, and I'll seek them out in the months ahead.
Okay. Knowing about the Indian cinema, have you seen any changes in Indian cinema compared to the Western cinema, the international cinema?
Well, I certainly think that our Indian cinema is growing and is experimenting at a much more rapid state, at a much more rapid pace. I think that we're seeing leaps and bounds as our cinema taking. But I want to just very quickly go back to IFFI. You asked me one of my other regrets about IFFI, and I read about this, and I'm deeply saddened. Our own National Film Festival doesn't have room for some of our masters. I mean, Adur Gopalakrishnan's latest film, not at IFFI. They didn't think it was good enough for selection. Buddhadev Dasgupta, again, one of the masters of cinema, film not selected, latest film. I mean, if our own National Film Festival doesn't celebrate the cinema of our great masters, then we have something to feel embarrassed about. I really think that these really are our greats. They're probably our last great filmmakers to come out of India. It's a bit of a shame. It's a bit embarrassing that our
do you think this is the problem of the selection committee?
I don't know whose problem it is. I just think that this is something that we should not have excluded. This is something these are our great filmmakers, and their latest films should have been there.
Okay. We have seen that the regional cinema is now minimalized, and the commercial cinema, which we call the Bollywood, has growing day by day, but the regional cinema is still there where it was 50 years back.
In fact, I think the regional cinema has grown considerably. I think that how do you judge the growth of a cinema if it's able to cross over outside of its language regions? I think you see that with Marathi cinema. Marathi cinema has taken leaps and bounds. Malayalam cinema is growing. Tamil cinema is growing. Telugu is now delivering massive crossover blockbusters like Bahubali. I don't think it's fair to say that. I think that sure, if you compare it to, I think the way to look at these things is compare it to 5 years ago, compare it to 10 years ago, and then you will see the change. If you compare it to America or Israel or Iran or France, of course it's going to be very different, because the government support that those countries give to their films is way greater than our government does for our films. So of course, in comparison to internationally, we still come up short. But if you just compare it to a few years ago, I think that regional cinema has grown considerably.
Last question. Why do you think that Konkani cinema is lacking behind? Because of government or their own?
Well, the truth is it's a small film industry, and for any film industry to make a mark, you need a push. I mean, it's not a very big film industry. You don't see a lot of actors, filmmakers. You don't see as many as certainly as say Bengali cinema or Tamil cinema or Telugu cinema. Naturally, it's a much smaller state. It's a much smaller cinema. But the government needs to do more. There needs to be more encouragement. There needs to be more funds provided to them. That is how French cinema came up. That is how Italian cinema came up. The government has to support, and then you see if there is talent and whether there is skill. But you can't dismiss a cinema as a non-performing cinema if they've not been given the tools to come up. And I think that will make the change. If there's adequate support provided to the cinema of the state, then we can judge whether the cinema has the strength and has the talent to to really make an impression.